links down in the description box and snag one for yourself. Today's Mystery Monday is a cold case which was just recently solved. I want to thank Ariel over on Patreon for requesting this case. Okay, let's get into it. Today's case took place in Las Vegas in January of 1979. 16-year-old Kim Bryant, who was a student at Western High School in Vegas, was registering for her classes for the upcoming year. It was January 26th, and all of the students were getting ready to register for their classes, and then they were just kind of hanging out with friends. Some were just going home, but a lot of teens headed across the street to a local Dairy Queen just to kind of hang out after they had left school. So this Dairy Queen wasn't open yet, but I guess they would rather hang out there than stick around at school. So Kim and one of her friends decided to wander over to Dairy Queen, kind of following everyone. As they crossed Decanter Road, which was like a pretty busy street that led through town, there were cars going through and stuff, and they just kind of followed everyone across the road and went to Dairy Queen. A few minutes after Kim and her friend arrived, a late model 1950 Chevy with a sanded silver gray primer finish, and it was sporting raised back wheels, kind of slowed to a stop in front of Dairy Queen. There were these two young guys in the car who made some suggestive and very uninvited comments to the high school girls. And Kim and her friend reportedly responded with some obscene words. This car then sped off and merged into traffic, and it was flowing southbound along Decanter. At 10:10 a.m., Kim's friend left. So what happened was her mom came to get her, and they actually asked Kim if she needed a ride, and Kim was like, hang on a sec, and she ran to use a payphone, and when she came back, she thanked them for their offer, but declined. She had used the payphone to call her boyfriend and ask him to come get her. So she just kind of hung out in the parking lot, and the kids kind of slowly trickled out of the Dairy Queen parking lot. Some of them on foot, some of them eventually got rides home. But Kim was last seen standing at this Dairy Queen directly across from Western High School's football field. She was wearing a patchwork rabbit fur coat, a white top, which was pulled over a black shirt. At 10:45 a.m., her boyfriend pulls into the Dairy Queen parking lot, but Kim wasn't there. In fact, Kim was nowhere to be found. Back in the 70s, it was easier to write stuff off like this than I think it would be today. But her boyfriend is just like, maybe she took off with friends. But Kim had plans that afternoon stepdad, Sherry, and Edward Elliott headed down to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department to report Kim as a missing person. Okay, so there are some varying reports in this case that have to do with the timeline. People don't start coming forward with information until days after Kim has gone missing. Kim's parents went to the media trying to get her picture out there, her story out there. But police had labeled her a runaway. And because police thought she was a runaway, initially no one except her family and friends really knew she was missing. So the witnesses don't start trickling in. No one comes forward because no one knows she's gone. Kim's parents told police that they had gotten into an argument with her the night before, and police would end up looking through her bedroom, and they found her journal. And in her journal there were several entries about how she wanted to run away. So they just decide she had left on her own accord, and so she wasn't even considered an endangered runaway. They just figured she would show back up. 4 days after she went missing, her boyfriend comes forward and tells police that Kim had been at that Dairy Queen. She had called and asked for a ride. So this is when police first have like a last place Kim was seen. I will preface this by saying that I'm totally guessing here, but it seems like Kim's parents must not have known about her boyfriend, because no one went to him when she was first reported missing. No one questioned him. Police didn't go to him. Her parents didn't call him. So I am assuming that this relationship wasn't known, at least to her parents. Maybe her friends knew about this relationship. Police would also get a call from a witness. This witness happened to see a backpack near this Dairy Queen, and it was actually laying on the median in the road between the high school and the Dairy Queen. This guy notices the backpack. He's curious. He opens it up and looks through it and sees Kim's ID inside. And I guess where this backpack was located, it seemed like someone had probably thrown it out of a car while driving away. So again, this witness did not alert police because there was like a week that went by where nobody knew she was missing. But it's not like the driver did nothing. 1979, Kim Bryant's remains were discovered in the desert by 3 children who were out shooting BB guns. They had ran out into the road and a police car happened to be driving by. So they were able to flag the officer down. Kim was found lying face down, nude from the waist down, and her body was covered in debris like someone had tried to hide her. It was determined that Kim had suffered blunt force trauma after being hit on the head with a large rock, and this rock was actually found near her body when her body was found. The cuts and bruises on Kim's body told the story of a girl who had fought for her life. Her body was taken by the coroner for an autopsy. It was discovered that she had been sexually assaulted, and DNA evidence was collected. But in 1979, DNA testing wasn't even like a thing yet. But luckily, someone had the forethought to save the swabs as evidence. Police initially believed that Kim had been killed shortly after she was taken, but then they would declare that she had been kept alive for up to 4 days before she was killed, and the community was really shocked by the death of Kim Bryant. Hundreds gathered to pay their respects as she was laid to rest at Palm Memorial Park in Las Vegas. People were mourning the death of a girl taken too soon, but detectives were on the hunt for the killer. In the days after Kim's body was discovered, police had several tips to follow up on, and the most promising lead was a witness who came forward to police and told police that Kim had been taken by some men in a Jeep. Police were able to track these men down, but they all had solid alibis for the morning that Kim went missing. And there were, of course, rumors going around that police had to follow up on, but these wouldn't lead to anything. Soon, the tips stopped coming in, and police really didn't have much to go on. Another problem, or I guess the reason that Kim's case had stalled, in addition to the lack of evidence, was how many violent crimes were being committed in Las Vegas. In fact, in Las Vegas, they had 25 homicides in January of 1979. I'm sorry, in 1979, between January and March. So 25 homicides. So detectives had their hands full. The lead detective with the police department told reporters that they had to abandon older cases to work new ones. Commander Eric Cooper said, quote, "Because we have so few investigators, they have to deal with the murders that are fresh, because you can't let a crime scene grow old," end quote. And the most frustrating aspect of this crime for investigators was the lack of eyewitnesses. Despite Kim having been taken in broad daylight along one of the busiest roads in the city, there was just Chevy. It had Nevada plates, and it had a silver coat of primer paint with light primer spots and raised back wheels. These men attempted to entice the girls into their car. So the girls basically tell these guys to get lost, and the men sped off, like shouting swear words at them as they left. Now, if these girls had a description of the vehicle and of the men, and with this, police would get a sketch, like their first sketch in the case. So the sketch they had was of an 18 or 19-year-old man with shaggy blonde hair and droopy stoner eyes. The girls also said that they remembered the driver as a man in his early 20s with a mustache and medium brown hair. Detective Bob Hilliard, head of the murder investigation, said the suspects, quote, both looked like the grumpy hippie types, end quote. I don't know why, but that description makes me laugh. Anyway, so they went about trying to see if these men had been approaching other students earlier in that day, and they found out that they had approached some male students. There was a group of male students near the Dairy Queen. They were actually in the school's parking lot heading toward the Dairy Queen, and they had also been approached by these men. So once police released this sketch, calls began flooding into the police station. But they kind of sputtered out just as quickly as they had begun, and none of these tips were able to, put names to the faces. By the end of that year, Kim's case had once again stalled. Her parents moved away from Las Vegas in the years following her death, but they continued to pressure police into following up on her case. They wanted information on the case. They wanted information on the status of the case. And the mid-1980s would bring a new suspect into focus, along with the possibility that Kim's slaying had been one of several perpetrated by a ruthless cross-country serial killer named Robert Ireland, who arrived in Vegas from San Francisco sometime in 1977. They were able to pin multiple murders on him, but Kim's was never one of them. And in fact, over the years, many suspects came up and police really tried to solve her case, but they just couldn't. And Kim's case just remained unsolved for 40 years until DNA evidence and genealogy were able to help ID the man who killed her. And this break came just a few months ago in November of 2021. Kimberly Murga, director of laboratory services for the Las Vegas police, said in a news conference, quote, "We first attempted DNA on this particular case back in 2008, but we were not able to get a DNA profile. But technology has continued to advance and revolutionize. We again attempted DNA on different items of evidence in January of this year. We were able to obtain foreign male DNA profile on some evidence, and we put that DNA profile in 6 family members who voluntarily submit their DNA into a genealogy database. So this allows police to create a more detailed family tree than if they were limited to using the law enforcement databases like Coldest. Genetic genealogy gained visibility as an investigative tool back in 2018, and this is when the Golden State Killer was arrested. So, employees of Othram Incorporated, which is a private laboratory, built a genealogical profile of Bryant's unknown killer through his family tree. Othram and police eventually were able to narrow the search down to a relative of his who was willing to give his DNA sample, and that sample allowed investigators to zero in on their suspect, Johnny Peterson, who died in January of 1993. Now, Peterson was just 19 years old and living in Las Vegas at the time of the murder. He had previously attended Kim's school, although it's unclear if they ever had interacted, if they knew each other. In April of 1980, he was arrested for a sexual assault, but the case was dismissed, and police say this guy was never on their radar for Kim's case or any other unsolved cases in the Las Vegas area. So, during this press conference, the police officer said, quote, "Nothing is going to make the pain go away, but at least the family has some closure in the case." Now, I quickly want to cite my sources because I found this amazing blog that had so much information, and it goes really in depth into the possible suspects over the years. It is called Mayhem in the Desert blog, and the article was titled "Taken from School: The Unsolved Murder of Kim Bryant." There was also a great ABC News article by Emily Shapiro from November of 2021 titled "Teen Kim Bryant Killed in 1979: How DNA Has Helped Identify a Suspect." This case is one of those super frustrating cases right from the beginning. It happened a lot back in the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, when teenage girls or teenage boys would go missing. They were labeled runaways more often than not, and so no one was looking for them in those first 48 hours that we know are so vital to investigations. So, when I was researching this case and I read that she had been labeled a runaway, it just made me cringe. I mean, even if these teenagers are runaways, police should still be looking for them. Going lost in 1979, or going lost, being abducted, it would be so much harder to investigate because there's no cell phones. There's not CCTV footage tracking our every moves. So, if there are no witnesses, it's so easy for these people to just disappear, and we can see that in this case. She was just gone. There's not a ton of information about the suspect in this case. I did try to find a picture of him and versus the sketches, but I couldn't find a picture of him when he was 19, when this would have happened, to see if he looked like one of the Secondly, 25 murders happening within a 3-month span in Las Vegas is insane. And it's so sad because had there not been such a high homicide rate at that time, police maybe could have investigated Kim's case more thoroughly. Not that they didn't do a good job, but they maybe could have followed up on leads and maybe found this guy. It's always so anticlimactic when they finally find the killer and the killer's dead. Like, that guy went his entire life without having to pay the price for what he had done. It'd also be interesting to see if he killed more people, and I'm sure police are now trying to link other murders and missing persons cases to him. Because if you kill someone when you're 19, chances are you don't just straighten up and never do that again. Usually we see like an escalation in behavior like that. So I will kind of keep my eyes open for anything else about him, see if he is linked to any more cases, and I will definitely let you guys know. Thank you so much for joining me for another true crime video. I actually have one more for this week here on YouTube that will be released, and then of course a longer, more in-depth one will be released over on Patreon. I would love it if you joined us over there. The link is down in the description box. Have a great night,